Hello, my name is Keshwani. That's K-E-S-H-W-A-N-I, Keshwani. I have been solving math problems for GRE out of this book here, practicing to take the GRE General Test, the 10th edition. If you do not own this book already, purchase one immediately. The problem that I'm about to solve is the one that you're going to find on page number 362, question number 12, the very first one. Let's take a look at it. They give you a little graph here, so let me reproduce it first before we bother reading the problem. It says the equation of the line graphed on the rectangular coordinate system above is, and then they give you the equation. Y equals 8x over 9 plus 3. And they want us to compare the distance PO in the first column versus the distance RO. But before we actually start solving the problem and so forth, let's first understand what do these distances signify. The distance PO, P to O, OP, I don't know why they have to say PO, OP would have been better, but anyway. So this distance right here that I'm showing you here from the origin to the point P, that distance is called the y-intercept. The y-intercept, this P, point P is y-intercept. It is called y-intercept because that is where the line that we have intersects the y-axis. See, here's our graph, and this is our line. At this point, the line intersects the y-axis. It is called that distance right here. This distance is called the y-intercept. Similarly, this distance from R to O is called, this distance right here is called the x-intercept. The coordinates of the point R are going to be, since we're talking about this R here, at this point, since there is no y distance on the y-axis, the y coordinate is going to be 0. So this is going to be, let's call it small r for this R here, and 0. Because the y coordinate of this point, big R, is 0. Similarly, the x coordinate of point P is 0. Why is it 0? Because that point, if I have let me throw it a little bit bigger graph so you can see it. If I have a point here on this point, there is no x distance. It doesn't travel on the x-axis. So whatever the coordinates of this points are, it's going to be some y coordinates and a distance of 0. Similarly, a point here has some x distance of x here, but the y coordinate is 0 because it doesn't travel up. Here the y coordinate is 0, here the x coordinate is 0. That's what we're showing here. So let's signify the small r for the distance from O to R. Let's call it a small r, and let's call this the x coordinate here is 0, so it's 0, and then small p. Let's call this small p. Now the question is how do we find out this distance? How do we figure out this distance? It's very simple, it's very straightforward. To calculate this distance, the distance at which the line intersects the y-axis is by substituting 0 for x in this equation and solve for y. So let's do it. Substitute 0 for x. So y equals, well, if you substitute 0 for x, it's very simple. X times anything is 0 times anything is 0. So 0 times 8 is going to be 0. 0 divided by 9 is 0. So this is where x is 0. So your y-intercept is this right here. We just figured out the value of p right here. OP, it is 3. So we can replace this thing. Or we can write right underneath it 0 and 3. Similarly, we have to figure out this distance from O to R. And at this point here, the value of y is 0. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to substitute the y equal to 0 and solve for x. If y is 0, we have 0 equals, let's put it right here, 0 equals 8x over 9 plus 3. Bring the 3 on the other side, subtract 3 from both sides, and you end up with 8x over 9 equals negative 3. Multiply both sides by 9, and you end up with 8x equals negative 27, and x equals negative 27 over 8. Now since we're talking about the distance, since we're comparing the distance, we're not talking about the value, we're talking about the distance OR, we have to take the absolute value of it. And the absolute value of that is 27 over 8. And that 27 over 8, we know that 27 divided by 9 is 3, therefore 27 over 8 has to be more than 3. Has to be more than 3. This is how we write it. This is more than 3, or you can say that this quantity, whatever it is something more than 3. Something more than 3 is 3 plus. And this one was 3. Sorry, the y-intercept was 3 as we just figured out, and the x-intercept as we just figured out. So this is to figure out the x-intercept. And x-intercept as we just figured out is more than 3. Since x-intercept, let's put it here, 27 over 8 and 0. Since x-intercept is 27 over 8, one more time I'm explaining it, we know that 27 over 9 is 3, therefore 27 over 8, whatever it is, it's got to be more than 3, because 27 over 9 would have been 3. So that's more than 3, this is exactly equal to 3, this is more than that, the answer is B. That's all. That's all it was. But you cannot simply sit there and say, well, this is a negative quantity and this is the positive quantity, therefore of course the positive quantity has to be more than negative quantity. You cannot just do that. You're going to end up picking the wrong answer then. As you can clearly see here, this is, even though this is positive, but this is only 3. This is 27 over 8, which is more than 3 in the absolute term, because we're comparing distances, and the distances has to be converted into absolute value. You cannot say that the distance from here to the next town is negative 8 miles. It doesn't work that way. If I'm standing in the middle, look, I'm going to give you a simple example to make you understand why we took the absolute value. If I'm standing right here in the middle, let's call it a town A, and a town B, going this way, town B is 5 miles, and going this way, town C is 6 miles. You cannot say that this town is closer to A than this town because this is positive 6 and this is negative 6. That's insane. Distance from C to A is not negative 6 miles. Distance cannot be negative 6. Because if you end up speaking in terms of negative numbers and positive numbers for distances, what you will end up saying here is that the town B is actually closer than town C because this is positive 5 and this is negative 6. That's pure insanity. The distances have to be converted into absolute value before we can do the comparison. Otherwise you'll end up picking the wrong answer. Otherwise you'll end up saying that this distance, since it's positive, is more than this distance, this is negative, then you're going to end up picking the wrong answer. You're going to end up saying that the y-intercept, the OP, is bigger, but we just found that OP is actually smaller than OR. That's all. I hope you found it helpful. I know it's a little bit complicated. Only 38% of the people got it right. More than 3/5 of the people who took the exam missed it. But I hope my explanation was helpful. If you wish to get hold of me for personal private tutoring, I tutor over the internet via Skype. I also tutor over the telephone, and I also obviously do tutoring face-to-face in Massachusetts, New York, or Connecticut, where I live and so forth. But if there is anything at all that I can help you with, go to my website at www.prep.gre.com and send me an email. Or you can go to www.KeshwaniPrep.com. Alright? Thanks.